Hey, I'm Angela Walters from Quilting is My Therapy, and in this video I'm going to show you the leafy border design as well as how to create a cool effect as a filler by changing up the size of the design. To quilt the leafy design so that it fills this whole border, I'm actually going to have to quilt it in rows of 2. I'm going to start by quilting my leaf so that it angles out to one side. Then I'm going to echo my way around to the other side of the leaf. Now I'm going to quilt a second leaf so that it angles to the opposite side. Then I'll echo around it until I get to the point where the two leaves come apart. That point is where I want to be so that I have enough room to add my next leaf going in the same direction as the first. The reason I quilt these leaves so that they angle away from each other is so that it will take up as much space as possible. Like I say time and time again, I think people will notice a gap in the quilting before they notice an error. So as long as all those leaves fill in the area, that's the most important thing. I tend to quilt my leaves so that they're pretty basic, just a pointed shape and then echoing around it. Of course, you could really embellish it by adding more details to it. Once the design reaches the border corner, by that I mean it's extending into that spot, I'm going to quilt my next leaf so that it goes to the outer corner. I want to really fill in that area. And then I'm basically going to just start going the next direction. If you have any gaps or if it looks weird, you can just keep echoing until it's filled in. If I don't have quite enough room to echo back out of my leaf, I'll just travel along the edge of the border until I have enough room. The most important thing isn't that the leaves are perfect, it's not even that they're going in the right direction, it's just that I fill in that whole area as much as possible. And then I'm going to repeat, quilting my leaves in alternating directions, filling up as much of the border as possible. Now up to this point, one thing we haven't talked about is how to join the design as it wraps around the quilt. If I'm quilting this in a border, eventually the design is going to come back together, and I've got to figure out how to make that happen so it doesn't look weird. So you can tell here's where I began, and this is where I'm at right now. I'm going to stop the leaves so that I have a good inch or so in between them, and then I'm going to use echoing to hook them together. Echoing is like the glue that holds it all together. And just like the rest of the design, as long as I don't have any gaps, it's going to look fine. Even if one leaf is a little smaller and there's more echo lines on the other side. Now that we've seen how to quilt the leaf design in a border, let's see how we can change it up on the long arm. You can take any design and turn it into a border design. All you have to think about is transition. For instance, the transition could be traveling along a seam. It could be adding another line. It could be quilting it in a different direction, which is what we're going to do in this variation. Traveling over to give me room for my first leaf, and then quilting it so it extends out to the other side, adding an echo, then quilting my transition, which will be an arc to the other side. Now I have the space needed to quilt my leaf in the opposite direction, and then on down to my next. That arched line is helping me transition from leaf to leaf to leaf, and changing directions is helping really fill in that space as much as possible. And I can continue working my way from side to side, quilting those beautiful leaves. One tool that'll help you keep those leaves spaced out just right is this design with line stencil. I can easily place it on my border and quickly mark out my 2-inch lines so that I know exactly where I want to add my next leaves. As I approach the border corner though, I'm going to change it up just a bit. I'm going to get as close as I can to that inner corner, travel to that spot, and then quilt 3 leaves so that they overlap, really filling in that corner and getting me on the right direction. It's also going to bring me right to the border corner so I can go into my transition. Then I'll continue the design going vertically. But it's going to give it a beautiful flourish in the corner and make it look gorgeous. Now, of course, you've seen a leafy filler before. We've actually seen it in a previous challenge. However, we're going to change up the size of the design to draw attention to the center of our flower panel. I'm going to start by using my water-soluble marker to determine the element that we're going to show off. So I'm just kind of tracing around a flower-like shape. And this could be any part of our quilt. It could be a block or an applique or even another quilting design. Then I'm going to roughly draw some rings around the center. They don't have to be perfect. It's just going to be a guideline so that I can quilt my design in different sizes within these rings. So now that I have kind of a game plan, it's time to start quilting. In the ring closest to the leaves, I'm going to quilt the leafy meander more densely. I'm not only quilting the leaf on a smaller scale, I'm also making the space between the lines smaller as well. Now as I transition into the second ring, I'm going to start quilting the leaves a little bit bigger. It doesn't have to happen exactly as I cross the line, but as I begin to fill in that area, I'm just going to quilt them on a larger scale. I'm aiming for about a quarter inch in between the lines and quilting the leaf about the size of a quarter or even a half dollar. It doesn't matter what size I quilt them as long as there's a clear difference between the two. The change in density is really going to help draw the eye to the center of the panel, which is where I want it to go. These reference lines will help keep me on track and keep the spacing consistent all the way around the flower. If I were working on a larger quilt, it would be even more helpful since I can't see the whole quilt at any one given time. As I transition into the outer ring, I'm going to make the leaves bigger still. I'm quilting the echo lines almost a half of an inch apart and making the overall leaf much bigger than the middle ring. Don't stress out too much about the size of your leaves. For the most part, I want them smaller as they're closer and bigger as they come away. Even if that means they're not all exactly the same size, we're still going to get that really cool effect. If you're having a hard time keeping the design consistent, you can draw out the different designs on a piece of paper and keep it close by so that you can quickly reference it as you're going. The reason this works is because our eyes are drawn to something different. So as the density changes and gets smaller, that's where we'll naturally start to look. Of course, I could do small leaves throughout this whole block and it really would show off the flower in the center, but that would take a lot longer. Changing the size gives me the same exact effect, but it's a lot quicker than quilting those smaller ones over the whole area. I'm pretty sure I say this in every single video, but I'm using a contrasting thread so that you can really see what I'm doing. However, if I'm going to use this technique on an actual quilt, it's imperative that I use a matching thread color to the background so that the quilting doesn't overwhelm the element that we're trying to highlight. I'm quilting the design so that I'm going in between the different sections without a problem. You could go about quilting your quilt a little differently. If you want to quilt all the smaller leaves first and then do the next size and so on and so forth, you might find that it helps you keep it consistent. And I'm going to keep on going, quilting the leaves in all different sizes until the whole block is filled in. Once the whole block is finished, all that's left to do is to remove those markings so that we can see the beautiful texture we've created with our quilting. Now it's your turn. Go ahead and try quilting the leafy border design of your choice in the border highlighted in red. Then in the cream floral block, and you can quilt the leafy meander in different sizes to highlight that center portion. Next week, we're going to play with the bracket design as we use it in the borders and as an all-over design. I'll see you then.
There's links below in the description box to additional resources and more information.